Good to be here. Danny was supposed to be doing this program, and he owes me big time for me doing this for him. But I've been part of this project from the onset. Something that I'd like to say that we have been very excited about it. It's something new, something different for a board to take a proactive approach to address and come up with some solutions to our declining water table. I am the junior, one of the newest director for Moore County on the water board, and like Nick was saying, I also farm, so I do have some skin in the game in this in making this work and making it a success. Now, to explain a little bit about the 12200 program, because there's some different ideas on how we came up with this, and it was almost an arbitrary number that was picked out. And it was kind of a lofty goal, and really Phil Holland is the person that came up with this when we were addressing, well, it had to do with the DFC. The DFC, the desired future condition, which I'm sure has been talked about a lot and which most of you are familiar with, probably the biggest motivating force in getting us to come up with some ideas on how to address the declining water table in our area. Why? I kind of got ahead of myself. Biggest reason, DFC. But also, I think, and I want to visit with a little bit about several things. The biggest reason why, and one of the reasons we pick corn is obviously it is the biggest commodity crop that is grown probably north of the Canadian. It's our biggest cash crop. And you can see the amount of water that is required to that is utilized to grow corn in our water district, and also I have to get familiar with these slides a little bit, so bear with me. And the total acres that we're growing, and also the amount of water that it takes to grow the amount of corn that we're growing in Texas Panhandle. I think, getting back to the DFC, when I first got on the board, I didn't even know what that acronym meant. I've heard it a little bit discussed, and now I have a greater appreciation of what the water board does. Now that I'm on it, obviously, so than when I wasn't. But there's several things that I think are our biggest concerns, that how we're going to slow the rate of our water use in our area, because we know at our current pace that what we're currently doing is not sustainable. I'm a corn grower, and we're almost 90 to 100% corn most years, and so this is a big concern of mine. Now, and it is of every irrigator in the Texas Panhandle. But one of the things I think that what drives this is, obviously since 2007, is high commodity prices. And because of high commodity prices, that completely changed the complexion, especially in our area. You saw a lot of people that were my neighbors are gone now, have sold their land. Land prices have gone up. New people moving in. There's been a lot of economic development move in via dairies, and I'm not criticizing this at all, because we know, especially corn growers, know that we're still the biggest users of water in our area. So with all this being said, the water district, it's a partnership. I think a lot of people look at the water district and say, well, they have this adversarial approach about what we're trying to do, and it's just some agency just, mandating orders down to what we need to be doing. But really, it is a good thing, and this is my plug for the water district. And I have a huge amount of respect for the people, the staff like Kurt, and the other board members that I get to serve with, their wisdom and some of the things that they've had to go through in the past just to come up with some regulations which have been very well thought out, and I think basically just to kind of save us from ourselves. And I think the biggest issue, what I've seen, and this is my observation, that producers already meet a lot of the requirements as far as allocations go on a yearly basis, and even with the continued drop in allocations that we'll see, you know, year in and year out. I say year in and year out. This is going to be a progressive thing, and I'm not going to speak out of turn and say what we're going to end up with. And a lot of people, when we talk about this 12-200 program, have the assumption that that's why we came up with the program, because we're going to end up with a 1 foot, and that may be the very case, but it's not going to be here really close. But I think one of the, to back up a little bit, I think the main issue is not so much, or the biggest challenge that we see is not the producers have a problem with cutting back on our allocation, because a lot of them are already there already. And not only that, and especially in my area, because of our water situation is declining so rapidly, we couldn't even pump our full allotment right now if we wanted to. And I'm not saying that's that way everywhere, but it's getting to be that way pretty quickly. Now, our biggest challenge that I see in the water district is not so much getting the producers to comply, because I think we're already there and we have great compliance, but how we're going to slow down, or how we're going to handle new development coming in. And there's a lot of new investment money coming in. I think economic developers are doing a great job on identifying industry that is not huge users of our primary and our most life-giving resource, which is our water. So that is the main challenge right there, and how that's going to be addressed. And I'm sure at some point there will be stakeholder meetings again that will get input from you all's side, from the producer's side, on how we're going to handle this, because we're a right to capture state, and we love that freedom, and we love owning the resource underneath us, but it's limited. We know it's non-replenishable for the most part, especially in the western counties. The eastern counties still see some recharging areas, but what we have is what we have, and that's the desired future condition. Basically is looking in the future where we want to be at the end of 40 years or 50 years and how we're going to get there. And people need to realize, and I'm sure they do, that the more we drill, that means that's going to be cutbacks for everybody to try to achieve this desired future condition. This is just one attempt by the board to be proactive in saying, okay, what can we do to get there? We know we're predominantly corn growers, how and the effect that has on the local economies of the entire Texas Panhandle. So how can we be proactive and do some things that, instead of waiting until we are already there, let's see what we can do with cutting our water back pretty drastically, and see if we can, and what kind of, and how that's going to affect profitability. The regulatory, and I've just spoke a lot about what, the regulatory aspect of what we're trying to do. Some of this stuff, ultimately, I think we will be down to 12 inches of water that you'll be able to pump. I don't know when that year will come. A lot of it will depend on new development. And again, some of these things, I think we're going to quickly reach the point of, either economically or because of the water that you do have available on your own farming operations, we're already there. I mean, you hear a lot of griping about, and a lot of this is, and excuse me for saying this, but just out of ignorance, not really knowing where you're at as far as how much water you're pumping on your crops. This is groundwater management area 1. These area 1, which is where we want to have 40% of the water left in 50 years, and I'm going to try to go through this real quickly. I know, but all this has led up to where we're at as far as the 12-200 program, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. A lot of you guys have already seen this. This is where we reside, Moore County, and Sherman County is up above, Hartley and Dallam. That is area 1, where the stakeholders have come together, and they felt like the 50-50 was not doable, but they felt like 40% of the water left in 50 years was. Obviously, this area is more highly developed, and we're seeing more new development move into this area. Responsibilities show producers how to do more with less. That was kind of our goal. That's what we're always trying to do every year anyway. But again, we wanted to take the first step and show that the board was very serious, that we had some skin in the game, and that we were going to take the first step in doing what we were ultimately other producers were going to have to do in our area. How far can we go? That was a question that we asked ourselves in a meeting, in a series of meetings. Somebody asked me, several people have asked me, like I've said before, how we came up with this 12 and 200. That was almost it wasn't quite an arbitrary number, but it was a pretty lofty goal. And so Phil Holland, like I said before, is the one that came up with it. He said, well, let's just see how much corn we can grow on 12 inches. And then somebody said, well, let's see if we can grow 200 on 12 inches. And of course, last year, since we had such a wet winter and a full profile, that seemed our attitude has changed a little bit on whether or not it's going to be a lot more challenging going into this next year. But you have a committed board, and as I'm going to get to a little bit later in my presentation, some of the things that we're looking for other producers to get involved in this program also. $200 bushels on 12 inches of irrigation water. There again, this is on 12 inches of irrigated or pumped water. That's another misconception where, people have come up to me and said, well, you can't grow 200 bushels of corn on 12 inches of water. Well, that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow 200 bushels on 12 inches of irrigated water or pumped water. Like I said before, the board of directors took the lead in 2010. They committed their own acres without any funding in place to recover losses due to yield reduction. Initially, we were looking for some help on this to help fund this project, and when we ran a little bit behind, we did not want to delay and wait another year. We wanted to go ahead and get started, and so that's why three of us board members committed to go ahead and get involved in this. A 3-field scale demonstration. We had 2 120-acre fields and 1 30-acre field, which was Phil Holland's. There's a lot of details about his demonstration that I don't know, and I don't have access with me to a lot of his information, but we will show this especially next year when we have more data, and I can get this information for you, but I just don't have access to it. Danny Krenke and myself had 2 fully 120-acre fields. Danny had 700 gallons of GPM under his. Mine was 475. We committed ourselves to, we weren't going to fudge on this. We weren't going to get to the point and say, well, okay, we've already pumped our 12 inches of water, so we're going to go ahead and just pump one more to finish the crop out. We committed that we were going to do this, and we would hold the line on no more than 12 inches of water. How? Everybody had different ideas about this. Some of the 4 things that we thought we needed to concentrate on, which this is nothing new to most of you. Irrigation management. One of the things we did want to do was provide the tools necessary to be able to save every inch of water that we possibly could. Moisture probes, which I think David Sloan has talked about. Pat Scarth spoke this morning about his irrigation scheduling. Leon New was involved in this project. We planted lots of moisture blocks. We wanted to utilize every tool out there that was available to us to be able to reach our goal. Residue management, that's something that we've been involved with quite a bit. We've been strip tilling and ridge tilling for years. Danny Krenke, I think, was more traditional or conventional. So was Phil Holland. I stuck with what we'd been doing for several years that we'd seen results with, and that is absolutely no plowing, maintaining high residue amounts. I felt, and the others felt this too, but since it was relatively new going into this first year, they didn't implement this into their operation. Now, last year, since we were so wet, we were able to get away with some things that I don't think you'd be able to do, especially on a year like this. But that we identified was something that we thought was real important. High residue management, pest and weed management, not just weed control, but complete weed control. And we got lots of input on some of the things that we could do beyond what we were already doing. I think especially myself thought that I knew all there was to weed control. I found differently. But we're trying zero weed control if all possible. And then nutrient management, just fertility. We don't want to over-fertilize. This is one of the things that if we're going to concentrate on net income and not just production, we don't want to put any more fertilizer out than we needed to grow a 200 bushel crop. Now, obviously that could change in season if you had lots of rainfall, and we did see that at the beginning of the season, that if you thought we weren't going to limit somebody to how much fertilizer they were going to put down, I sure don't want to put that message out. But there's certain inputs that we identified that where we were going to save on, and so we wanted to concentrate on those. Reducing input costs, obviously pumping, seed, fertilizer, harvesting. These are the 4 inputs that we felt like we could readily quantify, and then we will use year in and year out so everybody can look at, so we can come up with some comparisons on what we're doing traditionally versus with this cutback of going to 12 inches of irrigation water. Excuse me. Again, a paradigm shift, which I think is what it takes for a lot of us. I think most of us are caught up, or it seemed to be. I think most farmers who are still, those of us that are still in this business, I think have understood this, but the shift from production farming to net income farming. You don't necessarily want to, a lot of us like to have the bragging rights of growing the most corn per acre. The emphasis here is net farm income and where we're at on that production function. A lot of us we may have to back off that a little bit, and it's a whole different mindset when, for me especially, to wrap my brain around, okay, I've only got 12 inches of water, where am I going to make my best income on timing-wise and when I pump it to be able to achieve the highest net income that I can.